A teenager walked into a billionaire's office for a job interview. "I'll give you my company if you solve this," the CEO laughed, pulling up impossible code. 3 minutes later, he wasn't laughing anymore. Alex Morrison was 16 years old when he walked into Blackwell Technologies wearing his only button-down shirt, the one his mother had bought at Goodwill 3 years ago for his father's funeral. The security guard had looked at him like he was lost. "Kid, if you're looking for the Apple Store, it's 2 blocks down." "I have an interview," Alex had said, showing the email on his cracked phone screen. "Junior developer internship, 2 p.m. Now he sat in a glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor, watching the city sprawl beneath him like a circuit board, and tried not to think about how much the chair he was sitting in probably cost. More than his family's rent, definitely. Maybe more than their car, if it hadn't been repossessed last month. The door opened, and 3 people walked in. The first was a woman in her 40s, with kind eyes, and an MIT hoodie under her blazer. She smiled at Alex, a real smile, not the polite kind adults gave kids they were about to reject. The second was a man carrying a tablet, barely looking up from whatever he was reading. The third was Marcus Blackwell. Alex recognized him from magazine covers, from TechCrunch articles, from the Forbes profile his computer science teacher had made them read sophomore year. CEO of Blackwell Technologies. Net worth, $4 billion. Most influential tech entrepreneur under 50. The man who'd revolutionized cloud architecture and made servers obsolete for half the industry. Marcus looked at Alex the way someone might look at a stain on expensive carpet. "This is the kid?" he asked, not to Alex, but to the woman in the MIT hoodie. "Yes," she said. Alex Morrison. His coding samples were exceptional. The pathfinding algorithm he submitted. "I don't care about algorithms," Marcus interrupted. He sat down across from Alex, leaning back in his chair with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. "I care about whether he can actually code or if he just copied something from GitHub like every other teenager trying to impress us." Alex's jaw tightened. "I don't copy code." "Sure you don't." Marcus pulled out his phone, typed something, and a massive screen descended from the ceiling. Code appeared. Dense, complex, the kind of problem that would take a professional developer hours to untangle. "Here's the deal, kid," Marcus said, his voice dripping with condescension that made Alex's hands clench under the table. "I'm going to give you a challenge. If you can solve it in 10 minutes, you get the internship. If you can't, you stop wasting our time and go back to whatever community college you're probably attending." "I'm a junior at Mission High," Alex said quietly, "and I'm not in college yet because I can't afford it." Marcus's smile widened like he'd just won something. "Even better. Then you really need this internship, don't you? Which means you'll be properly motivated." The woman in the MIT hoodie, her name tag said Dr. Emily Chen, CTO, touched Marcus's arm. "That's not necessary. We already reviewed his—" "Emily, please, I'm teaching him how the real world works." Marcus looked at Alex. "In tech, nobody cares about your sob story. They care about results. So here's your chance to prove you deserve to be in this room." He gestured to the screen. "This is a database optimization problem. Our current system processes 10,000 queries per second. I need it to process 50,000 without adding servers. Figure out how. You have 10 minutes. Marcus pulled up a timer on the screen. 10 minutes counting down. "One more thing," he added, that cruel smile still playing on his lips. "Just to make this interesting, if you somehow manage to solve this problem, I'll give you more than an internship. I'll give you my entire company." The other man in the room, mid-30s, nervous energy, laughed. "Marcus, come on." "I'm serious, David." Marcus leaned forward, looking directly at Alex. "If this kid can solve a problem my 50-person engineering team has been working on for 6 months, if he can do in 10 minutes what we couldn't do in half a year, then clearly he's smarter than all of us and deserves to run the company. Sound fair?" It wasn't fair. It was cruel. It was designed to humiliate Alex, to put him in his place, to remind him that he was just a poor kid from Mission High who didn't belong in a place like this. But Alex looked at the code on the screen and felt something click in his mind. He'd seen this problem before. Not exactly this problem, but the architecture, the approach, the way the database was structured. His father had worked on something similar. Years ago, before he died, before everything fell apart. "Can I use the computer?" Alex asked. Marcus gestured grandly. Be my guest. Alex pulled the laptop toward him and started typing. The room went silent except for the sound of keys clicking. Marcus was still smiling, checking his phone, probably texting someone about the kid he was about to embarrass. David was watching the timer. Dr. Tao. Chen was watching Alex, her expression unreadable. Alex ignored all of them. His fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory taking over. He'd been coding since he was 8, since his father had first shown him how beautiful it was when logic and creativity merged, when you could build entire worlds from nothing but thought and syntax. The problem wasn't actually that complicated if you understood the underlying structure. The issue was that Blackwell Technologies was using a traditional relational database architecture when what they needed was a distributed hash table with lazy evaluation. Alex wrote the code, tested it, optimized it. 3 minutes and 47 seconds after he started, he pushed the laptop back across the table. Done, he said. Marcus looked up from his phone, his smile faltering. What? I solved it. The database will now handle 63,000 queries per second with your current hardware. That's actually better than what you asked for. The smile was completely gone now. Marcus grabbed the laptop, his eyes scanning the code. His face went from confident to confused to something that looked like fear. This is... He stopped. How did you... Dr. Chen leaned over to look at the screen. Her eyes widened. Oh my God. This is the Morrison algorithm. Alex's heart stopped. What did you say? He whispered. The Morrison algorithm, Dr. Chen repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. It's a distributed computing approach that was theorized about 15 years ago but never successfully implemented. The mathematician who proposed it... She looked at Alex. What's your last name? Morrison, Alex said. His voice sounded far away, like someone else was speaking. Alex Morrison. Dr. Chen's face had gone pale. Your father. Was his name James Morrison? Everything in the room seemed to freeze. How do you know my father? Alex asked. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This meeting is over. David, escort the kid out. We'll contact him about the internship through official channels. Don't you dare. Dr. Chen cut him off. Her voice was steel. Alex, your father and I worked together 15 years ago. We were co-founders of a startup called Morrison Blackwell Labs. Morrison Blackwell, Alex repeated. He looked at Marcus, whose face had gone from pale to red. As in, my father and you? Ancient history, Marcus said dismissively. A failed startup that went nowhere. I bought out your father's shares and moved on. Built this company from scratch. You did not build this company from scratch. Dr. Emily Chen stood up, and there was fury in her voice that made everyone else in the room go silent. James Morrison designed the core architecture that Blackwell Technologies is built on, the cloud optimization protocols, the server redundancy systems, the distributed computing framework that made you billions. She looked at Alex. Your father was a genius, and Marcus pushed him out of the company 3 months before our first major contract. Bought his shares for $20,000 when James needed money for... She stopped. For medical bills. Your father was sick, wasn't he? Alex couldn't breathe. Cancer. He died 3 years ago. I'm so sorry, Dr. Chen said. I lost touch with him after he left the company. I didn't know. Get out, Marcus said to Alex. His voice was shaking now, all the arrogance stripped away. You need to leave. Now. Why? Alex stood up. He was shaking too, but not with fear, with rage. Because I just proved that I can solve problems your entire team can't? Because I used my father's algorithm. The one you stole from him? The one you built a $4 billion company on without ever giving him credit? I didn't steal anything, Marcus snapped. Your father sold me his shares. Legal contract. He signed paperwork. He signed paperwork because you told him the company was failing, Dr. Chen interrupted. I was there, Marcus. I heard you tell James that we'd never get funding, that the technology would never work. You convinced him to sell for $20,000 so he could pay for treatment. And then 2 months later, you got a $40 million investment from Sequoia Capital using James's architecture. The room was silent, except for the sound of Alex's breathing. My father died, thinking he'd failed, Alex said quietly. He died believing that his life's work amounted to nothing, that he'd wasted years building something that didn't matter. I was 13 years old. and I watched him apologize to my mom for not being able to provide for us, for not being smart enough, successful enough, good enough. Alex's voice cracked, but he pushed through. And you were at his funeral. I remember you. You came with flowers and told my mom how talented my dad had been, how much you'd learned from him. And the whole time, you were running a company built on his work, making billions from his ideas. And you never told us, never gave him credit, never offered to help us when we lost our apartment, when my mom started working 2 jobs, when my little brother had to drop out of the robotics team because we couldn't afford the fees. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. You said if I solved your problem, you'd give me your company, Alex continued. I solved it in under 4 minutes, but I don't want your company. I don't want anything from you. He picked up his backpack, worn, held together with duct tape, the same one he'd had since freshman year. I want everyone to know the truth. I want the world to know that Blackwell Technologies was built on stolen code, that you got rich by betraying the one person who trusted you. Alex walked toward the door. Wait, Dr. Chen called out. She pulled out her phone. I have documentation, emails, original code repositories, patent applications with James's name on them. I've kept everything for 15 years because I knew what Marcus did was wrong, and I was too much of a coward to speak up. But I'm not a coward anymore. She looked at Alex. Your father deserves to have his name on his work, and I'm going to help you make sure that happens. Emily, don't you dare, Marcus started. Or what? You'll fire me? Emily smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Go ahead. I've got job offers from every major tech company in the valley. But you're going to need me to explain to the board why a 16-year-old just solved a problem your team couldn't, and why that 16-year-old happens to be the son of the man whose algorithm runs this entire company. Alex looked at this woman who'd worked with his father, who'd stayed silent for 15 years, who was finally choosing to do the right thing. Thank you, he said. As he walked out of Blackwell Technologies, past the security guard who'd thought he was lost, down the elevator to the San Francisco streets where he belonged, Alex pulled out his phone. His mother had texted, "How did the interview go?" Alex typed back, "I'll explain when I get home, but Mom, I found out what really happened to Dad's company." Then he opened Twitter and typed, "Today I met Marcus Blackwell, CEO of Blackwell Technologies. He challenged me to solve a coding problem. I did, using my dad's algorithm. The same algorithm Marcus stole 15 years ago. My name is Alex Morrison. James Morrison was my father, and it's time everyone knew the truth." Posted. By the time Alex got on the bus home, the tweet had 1,000 retweets. By the time he walked through the door of their 2-bedroom apartment in the Mission District, reporters were calling. And by the time he sat down with his mother and little brother Tyler to explain what had happened, the words Morrison algorithm were trending worldwide. Marcus Blackwell sat in his office and watched his life's work, the empire he'd built on stolen genius, begin to crumble. And for the first time in 15 years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten existed: fear. The apartment was silent when Alex walked through the door. Laura Morrison sat at their small kitchen table, the one they'd bought at a yard sale 6 years ago, staring at her phone. Tyler was next to her, his 12-year-old face confused and a little scared. "Mom?" Alex said. Laura looked up. Her eyes were red. "Your tweet has 300,000 retweets. There are reporters outside our building. Mrs. Chen from downstairs just called to ask if we're okay because there's a news van blocking the street." She stood up, her hands shaking. "Alex, what happened? Who is Marcus Blackwell? Why are people saying your father invented—" Her voice broke. "Why didn't I know?" Alex dropped his backpack and sat down. For a moment he couldn't find words. How do you tell your mother that the man she'd loved, the man she'd watched die believing he'd failed, had actually succeeded beyond measure, that his brilliance had made someone else a billionaire while they'd struggled to pay rent? "Dad had a startup," Alex began, 15 years ago, with Marcus Blackwell. They were partners, co-founders of something called Morrison Blackwell Labs. Laura's hand went to her mouth. "I remember that. James talked about it when we first got married. He was so excited. He said they were going to change computing forever." She paused. "But it failed. He told me it failed. That's why he took the job at Pacific Systems, why we moved to the city. It didn't fail, Mom. Marcus lied to him. Alex pulled out his phone, showing her the flood of messages, the articles already being published, the tech journalists digging into Blackwell Technologies' founding documents. Marcus convinced Dad the company was going nowhere, got him to sell his shares for $20,000. Dad used that money for the first round of treatment, Laura whispered. Stage 3 lymphoma. Our insurance barely covered anything. We were drowning in medical bills. James came home one day and said he'd sold his shares in the startup. Said it was fine because the company was failing anyway. Said at least the money would buy him more time. She was crying now. Tyler moved closer to her, not understanding everything but knowing his mother was in pain. 2 months after Dad sold his shares, Marcus got a $40 million investment, Alex continued. Using Dad's algorithm, the Morrison algorithm. It's the foundation of everything Blackwell Technologies does. Cloud architecture, server optimization, distributed computing, all of it came from Dad's work. Laura stood abruptly, walked to their tiny living room, and opened an old storage box she kept in the closet. Inside were papers, notebooks, USB drives. Your father gave me these before he died, she said. He told me to keep them safe. Said they were his life's work, even if it had amounted to nothing. I never looked at them. It hurt too much. She pulled out a notebook. The cover was worn, the pages filled with handwriting Alex recognized. His father's precise, careful script. Mathematical equations. Code snippets. Design diagrams. The Morrison algorithm, the first page read. A new approach to distributed hash tables. Dated 16 years ago. Alex's phone rang, unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Alex Morrison? A woman's voice. Professional. Intense. This is Rachel Kim from TechCrunch. I'd like to talk to you about your tweet, and about Marcus Blackwell. Are you willing to go on record? Alex looked at his mother. Laura nodded. Yes, Alex said. I'll talk to you. The interview lasted an hour. Rachel Kim was thorough, asking for documentation, for proof, for anything that could verify Alex's claims. Alex sent her photos of his father's notebooks, the dates clearly visible. He connected her with Dr. Emily Chen, who'd already compiled 15 years of emails, code commits, patent applications, everything showing that James Morrison had been the primary architect of what became Blackwell Technologies. This is going to be our lead story, Rachel said. Possibly the biggest tech scandal since Theranos. A billionaire CEO built his empire on stolen code from a dying partner, and the partner's teenage son just exposed everything. By evening, the story was everywhere. Blackwell Technologies built on stolen algorithm, claims teen programmer. Marcus Blackwell accused of betraying dying co-founder. The Morrison algorithm, how a dead man's code made billions for someone else. Alex's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Interview requests, messages of support, offers from lawyers wanting to help. And then, a text from Dr. Emily Chen. Board called emergency meeting. Marcus is in damage control mode, but I have something you need to see. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Alex showed his mother. Laura read the message and looked at the notebooks spread across their table, her late husband's genius, finally being recognized. Go, she said. Find out what else they're hiding. That night, Alex couldn't sleep. He lay in the bed he shared with Tyler in their cramped bedroom, listening to his brother's steady breathing, thinking about his father. James Morrison had been 41 when he died. Not old, not young, just gone. Before he could see his sons grow up, before he could know that his work had mattered. Alex remembered the hospital room, the smell of antiseptic, his father's hand so thin it felt like holding bird bones, the way James had apologized for not being able to provide better, for not being successful enough, for leaving them with nothing. Take care of your mother, James had whispered. Take care of Tyler. Be smarter than I was. Don't trust the wrong people. Alex had been 13 and hadn't understood what his father meant. Now he did. Across the city, in a penthouse office that overlooked the Golden Gate Bridge, Marcus Blackwell was also awake. His PR team had drafted 5 different statements. His lawyers had sent him 3 memos about potential liability. His board had scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning where they would, almost certainly, demand his resignation. But none of that was why Marcus couldn't sleep. He was thinking about James Morrison, about the young, brilliant programmer he'd met at Stanford, the one who'd seen patterns in chaos, who'd understood computing at a level that made everyone else look like children playing with toys. Marcus had been the business guy, the one who could pitch to investors, who could schmooze at conferences, who could turn brilliant ideas into profitable companies. But James had been the genius, the one who actually built things that mattered. And Marcus had betrayed him. Not all at once. Not with malice at first. Just little compromises. Little lies. Telling James the investors weren't interested when really they'd wanted more equity than Marcus wanted to give up. Suggesting James take a sabbatical for his treatment when really Marcus was positioning himself as sole founder. Offering $20,000 for shares he knew would be worth millions. By the time James died, Marcus had convinced himself he'd earned it, that his business acumen was just as valuable as James's technical genius, that he deserved the success. But looking at Alex Morrison's tweet, seeing the math prodigy's son explain exactly how his father had been robbed, Marcus couldn't hide from what he'd done. He'd stolen from a dying man, profited from his partner's desperation, built an empire on foundations someone else had poured, and now the whole world knew. The next morning, Alex arrived at Blackwell Technologies at 9 a.m. The building looked different now. Same glass walls, same expensive lobby, but it felt smaller, less intimidating. Just a building, just a company built on his father's code. Dr. Emily Chen met him in the lobby, bypassing security. "The board meeting is in an hour," she said, as they rode the elevator up. "Marcus is going to claim the Morrison algorithm was jointly developed, that James contributed but so did the team, that buying out his shares was legitimate business." "And what's the truth?" Alex asked. Emily led him into her office, smaller than Marcus's but warmer, with photos of her family and whiteboards covered in equations. She pulled up a computer file. Code. Lots of it. "This is the original repository," Emily said. "From Morrison Blackwell Labs. Every commit, every change, every iteration is tracked with author information and timestamps." She filtered by author. James Morrison, 847 commits. Marcus Blackwell, 23 commits. Emily looked at Alex. "Your father wrote 97% of the core codebase. Marcus's contributions were mostly documentation and comments. He was the business guy. James was the architect." She opened another file. "This is the patent application for the Morrison algorithm, filed 16 years ago. Inventor listed, James Morrison. Co-inventor, Marcus Blackwell. Co-inventor." Alex frowned. "But you just said..." "Marcus added his name to the patent after James sold his shares," Emily explained. "I have the original filing. James was the sole inventor. But the final patent that got approved? Marcus amended it, made himself co-inventor. That's technically legal if you own the company, but ethically..." She shook her head. "It's theft, pure theft." Alex stared at the screen, his father's code, his father's genius. Stolen line by line, claim by claim, credit by credit. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "You've worked here for 15 years. This could ruin your career." Emily was quiet for a moment. Then, "I was there the day Marcus convinced your father to sell. James came to me, asked me what I thought, and I told him..." Her voice cracked. "I told him Marcus was probably right, that we weren't going to make it, that he should take the money and focus on getting better." She looked at Alex with tears in her eyes. "I was wrong. Or worse, I was a coward. I saw what Marcus was doing, but I wanted the startup to succeed so badly that I convinced myself it was necessary, that this was just how business worked, and I've regretted it every day since." Emily pulled out a flash drive. "This has everything. The original code repository, the patent applications, email chains showing Marcus lying to James about investor interest, financial documents showing the Sequoia Capital investment came through 8 weeks after James sold his shares, and recordings." "Recordings? I kept voice memos from our meetings, in case we ever needed documentation for investors or legal issues. I have Marcus on tape telling me to remove James's name from documentation, to make it look like the algorithm was a team effort, to bury any evidence that James was the primary architect." She handed Alex the flash drive. "Your father deserves to have his name on his work, and Marcus deserves to answer for what he did. Use this however you need to. Alex took the flash drive. It was small, ordinary, the kind you could buy at any electronics store. But it held the power to destroy a $4 billion company. "Thank you," he said. As Alex left Blackwell Technologies for the second time, he pulled out his phone and called Rachel Kim. "I have proof," he said. "All of it. Code repositories, patents, recordings, everything. Can you send it to me?" Rachel asked. "Better. I'm going to post it publicly. Let everyone see exactly what Marcus Blackwell did." That afternoon, Alex uploaded everything to GitHub, made it public, free for anyone to examine. The Morrison Algorithm, Complete History. The repository was titled, "How Marcus Blackwell Stole My Father's Life's Work." Inside, every commit, every patent, every email, every recording. Within an hour, it had 10,000 stars. Within 3 hours, Blackwell Technologies' stock had dropped 30%. Within 6 hours, Marcus Blackwell had resigned as CEO. And by evening, when Alex returned home to find his mother and brother waiting for him, Laura held up her phone showing a news alert. James Morrison to be posthumously recognized as primary architect of cloud computing revolution. Alex sat down at their small kitchen table, the same table where his father had once sketched algorithms and dreamed of changing the world. "He did it," Alex said quietly. "Dad actually did it." Laura pulled her sons close, tears streaming down her face. "He did, and now everyone knows." The call came at 7 in the morning, 3 days after Alex posted the GitHub repository. "Mr. Morrison?" A man's voice, professional, cautious. "This is Robert Chen from Morrison & Partners. We're a tech litigation firm specializing in intellectual property cases. We'd like to represent your family pro bono." Alex was still half asleep, sitting at the kitchen table with Tyler, who was eating cereal before school. "Pro bono means free, right?" "Yes. Your father's case has national attention. What Marcus Blackwell did, stealing a dying partner's intellectual property, it's not just theft, it's fraud, and we want to help you get justice." By noon, Alex was sitting in a conference room downtown with his mother, Tyler, and 3 lawyers who'd flown in from New York specifically for this case. "Here's what we're looking at," Robert Chen said, pulling up financial projections on a massive screen. "Blackwell Technologies is currently valued at $4 billion. The Morrison algorithm is fundamental to approximately 80% of their core products. If we can prove, and we can, that your father created this algorithm, you're entitled to compensation." "How much?" Laura asked quietly. "Conservatively, $500 million in back royalties and damages. Possibly more if we pursue punitive damages for fraud." The room went silent. Tyler looked at his mother. "Is that a lot?" Despite everything, Laura laughed. A real laugh. The first Alex had heard from her in months. "Yes, baby. That's a lot." But Alex wasn't thinking about money. He was thinking about the message he'd received that morning from a username he didn't recognize. "Your father would be proud. MB, Marcus Blackwell." "There's something else," Robert continued. 60 Minutes wants to interview you. National television. They're doing a segment on tech industry ethics and want your story as the centerpiece. It airs this Sunday. "That's in 4 days," Alex said. "I know it's fast, but the story is hot right now. Public sentiment is on your side. Marcus resigned, but he's claiming he was forced out unfairly, that he's the real victim here. This is your chance to tell the truth before he controls the narrative." Alex looked at his mother. Laura nodded. "I'll do it," Alex said. The 60 Minutes crew arrived at their apartment on Saturday afternoon. They spent 3 hours filming. Alex at the kitchen table with his father's notebooks, Laura showing photos of James in their tiny living room, Tyler talking about the dad he barely remembered. The producer, a woman named Jennifer, was gentle but direct. "We need you to talk about the hard parts, Alex, about watching your father die, about what it was like growing up poor while Marcus Blackwell got rich off your dad's work. Can you do that?" Alex nodded. He'd been preparing for this, going through memories he usually kept locked away. The interview itself lasted an hour. The correspondent, a veteran journalist named David, asked questions that cut straight to the heart of everything. "When did you realize your father had been betrayed?" "When Dr. Chen said Morrison algorithm, and I saw Marcus's face. He knew. He'd always known." "What was it like, solving that coding problem in 3 minutes?" "Honestly, it felt like my dad was there with me, like he was showing me the patterns. He taught me to code when I was 8. Every algorithm I know, every way I think about problems, that came from him. And when you found out Marcus had been at your father's funeral, Alex's voice caught. I remember him. He stood in the back, didn't stay for the reception, but he brought flowers, white roses. And I remember thinking, that's nice. Dad's friend came. I didn't know he was the reason Dad died, thinking he'd failed. The interview aired Sunday night at 7 p.m. Alex watched it with his mother and Tyler, Dr. Emily Chen and Robert the lawyer, all crammed into their small living room. The segment was titled, The $1 Billion Betrayal, How Silicon Valley Stole a Dying Man's Legacy. It opened with footage of Blackwell Technologies headquarters, then cut to Marcus's resignation press conference where he'd claimed creative differences with the board. Then Alex appeared on screen, 16 years old, sitting at a kitchen table that had seen better days, holding his father's notebook. My dad died apologizing, Alex said on national television. Apologizing for not being successful, for not providing better. And meanwhile, the man who stole his life's work was on magazine covers being called a visionary. The segment showed the GitHub repository, the commit history, the recordings. Emily appeared, explaining the technical details. Laura appeared, showing James's medical bills from 15 years ago, $78,000 in debt that the $20,000 buyout had barely dented. And then Tyler appeared. At 12 years old, Tyler was small for his age, with his father's eyes and his mother's gentle demeanor. The correspondent had asked him one question. What do you want people to know about your dad? Tyler had looked directly at the camera and said, I was 3 when he died. I don't remember much. But Mom kept all his stuff, his notebooks, his code, his letters. And every page, every line. He was trying to make the world better. He wasn't trying to get rich. He just wanted to solve problems. Tyler's voice had cracked. And Marcus Blackwell took that. Took my dad's dreams and made money from them. While we lived in a car for 2 months because we couldn't afford rent. That's what I want people to know. The segment ended with updated information. Blackwell Technologies stock down 40%. Multiple lawsuits filed. The SEC opening an investigation. And a final note. James Morrison will be posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame next month. His family will accept on his behalf. Alex's phone exploded with notifications. Messages from strangers offering support. From tech companies offering him internships. Real ones, not the kind where CEOs made cruel jokes. From universities offering full scholarships, and one email that made his breath catch. From email protected. Subject, I'm sorry. Alex, I know an apology means nothing. I know I can't undo what I did to your father. But I need you to understand something. James was my best friend. When we started Morrison Blackwell Labs, I genuinely believed we were going to change the world together. He was the genius. I was supposed to be the businessman who made his genius matter. But somewhere along the way, I started believing my contributions were equal to his. That my ability to pitch investors was as valuable as his ability to write algorithms that revolutionized computing. And when he got sick, when he needed money, I saw an opportunity. I told myself I was doing him a favor, taking a failing company off his hands so he could focus on getting better. But I knew the Sequoia investment was coming. I knew his algorithm was about to make us both rich. And I chose to let him sell for pennies because I wanted it all. Your father died never knowing how brilliant he truly was. That's on me. That's a weight I'll carry until the day I die. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that when I saw you solve that problem in 3 minutes, using your father's approach, his way of seeing patterns, I saw James. And I realized what I'd stolen wasn't just money or credit. I stole his chance to be here. To see his son become exactly the kind of programmer he dreamed of being, to teach you and Tyler and watch you both succeed. You were right to expose me. The world deserved to know the truth. Your father deserved to be recognized. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. Starting with this, I'm donating my entire remaining stake in Blackwell Technologies to a foundation in your father's name, for young programmers from low-income families. So kids like you don't have to choose between their dreams and survival. It won't fix what I did, but maybe it'll help someone else's father be there for their kids. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm sorry I robbed your family. And I'm sorry I robbed the world of more years with James Morrison. Marcus. Alex read the email 3 times. Then he showed his mother. Laura stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she started crying. Not sad tears. Something else. Something that looked like release. Your father forgave everyone, she said quietly. Even people who didn't deserve it. He used to say holding grudges was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She looked at Alex. What do you want to do? Alex thought about his father. About the man who'd taught him to code not for money or fame, but because problems were puzzles, and solving them made the world incrementally better. Who'd apologized for failing when he'd actually succeeded beyond measure. I want to accept his foundation, Alex said. Not for him. For all the kids whose parents are like Dad, brilliant but broke, talented but trapped. He typed a response. Marcus, I'll accept your foundation on one condition. My father's name is on everything. Every scholarship, every grant, every program. Not Morrison Blackwell. Just Morrison. Because you were right about one thing. You didn't earn equal credit. You never did. But my dad believed in second chances. So here's yours. Spend the rest of your life making sure no one else has to sell their dreams to pay for treatment. Make sure no other kid has to watch their parent die thinking they failed. Do that, and maybe, you'll deserve to say his name again. Alex Morrison. Sent. That night, Tyler climbed into bed next to Alex like he used to when he was little and had nightmares. Alex? Tyler's voice was small in the darkness. Do you think Dad knows what we did? Alex thought about the Morrison algorithm trending worldwide, about his father's notebooks being studied by computer science students, about the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Yeah, Ty, I think he knows. Good. Tyler was quiet for a moment. I'm glad we told everyone, even if it was scary. Me too. Alex, one more thing. What? When you get famous for being a genius programmer, can you remember me? Your annoying little brother? Alex pulled Tyler closer. You're not annoying, and I'll always remember you. We're a team, Morrison Brothers, just like Dad wanted. Tyler fell asleep quickly, the way kids do when they finally feel safe. But Alex stayed awake, thinking about the future his father had unknowingly built for him. Not with money or fame, but with algorithms and dreams, and the stubborn belief that broken things could be fixed if you understood the pattern. The Morrison algorithm wasn't just code. It was a legacy, a reminder that brilliance didn't need credit to matter, but it deserved credit anyway. And Alex Morrison, 16 years old, son of a genius, brother to Tyler, son of Laura, was going to make sure the world never forgot. His father had changed computing forever. Now Alex was going to change how the world remembered him, one line of code at a time. The National Inventors Hall of Fame ceremony was held in Washington, D.C., 6 weeks after the 60 Minutes interview aired. Alex had never been on a plane before. Neither had Tyler. Their mother had flown once for her honeymoon with James, back when they'd had dreams bigger than their bank account. Now they sat in first class, tickets paid for by the Hall of Fame Foundation. And Tyler pressed his face against the window, watching clouds roll beneath them like cotton. Dad would have loved this, Tyler said quietly. Laura reached across the aisle and squeezed her youngest son's hand. She was wearing a dress she'd bought specifically for the ceremony, the first new clothing she'd purchased in 3 years that wasn't from a thrift store. Alex wore a suit that actually fit, tailored for the occasion by someone Emily Chen had recommended. They looked like a different family, but Alex knew they weren't different, just finely visible. The ceremony was held in a grand hall with marble columns and chandeliers that probably cost more than their apartment. 300 people filled the seats. Inventors, engineers, tech executives, politicians, all there to honor innovators who changed the world. James Morrison was being inducted alongside 4 others. A woman who'd revolutionized solar panel efficiency, a man who'd developed a breakthrough in prosthetic limb technology, a team that had created a new water purification system, and a 90-year-old mathematician whose work had made modern encryption possible. Alex sat in the front row between his mother and Tyler, his father's original notebook in his lap. The one with the Morrison algorithm, written on the first page in James's careful handwriting. When it was time for James's induction, a video played on massive screens. It opened with code. Beautiful, elegant, the kind of programming that looked more like poetry than logic. Then James's face appeared, a photo from 15 years ago, young and smiling, in the lab at Morrison Blackwell. A narrator's voice. James Morrison saw patterns where others saw chaos. In 2010, while working on distributed computing systems, he developed what would become known as the Morrison algorithm, a breakthrough that revolutionized how data is processed across networks. The video showed charts, graphics, technical explanations that made some audience members lean forward with interest, while others looked politely confused. But James Morrison's story is also a cautionary tale about the tech industry's treatment of innovators. After developing the algorithm that would generate billions in revenue, Morrison was pressured to sell his shares for a fraction of their value while battling terminal cancer. He died in 2022, believing his life's work had failed. The screen showed Alex's tweet, the GitHub repository, the 60 Minutes interview. It took his teenage son to reveal the truth, to prove that James Morrison's algorithm was the foundation of an entire company's success, to ensure that the world knew his name. Then the video cut to something Alex had never seen before, his father teaching a class. The footage was grainy, clearly old, but James was alive on that screen, moving, talking, laughing. He stood at a whiteboard covered in equations, explaining something to students who watched with rapt attention. The beauty of code, James was saying, is that it doesn't care who you are. Rich, poor, young, old. If your logic is sound, if your algorithm works, it works. That's the promise of computing. Pure meritocracy. The best idea wins. He smiled at the camera. Of course, in practice, it's more complicated. Politics, money, power. They all corrupt the process. But the code itself? The code is honest. And that's why I love it. Alex felt his mother's hand grip his. Tears streamed down Laura's face. Tyler was crying too, seeing his father move and speak for maybe the first time he could remember. The video ended. The hall was silent. Then the presenter, a woman who'd won the Nobel Prize in Physics, called them to the stage. Accepting on behalf of James Morrison, his wife Laura, and his sons Alex and Tyler. They walked up together, Laura in the middle, her sons on either side. The audience stood, applauding. Not polite ceremony applause, real applause. The kind that went on and on until Alex's ears rang with it. The presenter handed Laura a crystal award with James's name engraved. James Morrison, pioneer of distributed computing systems. Laura held it like it might break. Then she stepped to the microphone. Alex had asked her on the plane if she wanted him to speak instead. Laura had shaken her head. I need to do this. For him. Now she stood in front of 300 people and said, my husband was the smartest person I ever met, but he was also the kindest. He taught computer science at community colleges for free because he believed everyone deserved access to knowledge. He spent weekends helping neighborhood kids with their homework. He believed in a world where talent mattered more than money. Her voice cracked, but she continued. James died thinking he'd failed. That breaks my heart. But standing here, seeing his name honored, knowing the world finally understands what he created. She looked at Alex and Tyler. Our boys did this. They fought for their father when I didn't have the strength. They proved that truth matters, that justice is possible, that sometimes the small voices are the ones that change everything. Laura held up the award. This is for every inventor who gets erased, every brilliant mind that gets exploited, every dreamer who dies not knowing they changed the world. She looked directly at the camera broadcasting the ceremony. James Morrison mattered. His algorithm powers the devices you're watching this on, the networks you use to connect with loved ones, the systems that make modern computing possible. Remember his name, and fight for the next James Morrison before they're stolen from. The applause was deafening. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Tech executives approached to pay respects, to apologize for an industry that had failed James. University deans offered posthumous honorary degrees. Companies offered to endow scholarships in James's name. And then Marcus Blackwell walked in. The room went quiet. People stepped back, creating a circle of space around him like he carried a contagious disease. Marcus looked different, thinner, older. He wore a simple suit, nothing flashy. His hands were shaking slightly as he approached Alex and his family. "I know I don't belong here," Marcus said quietly. "I know I have no right to be at a ceremony honoring the man I betrayed. But I needed to see this, to witness James getting what he deserved." Laura's face was unreadable. Tyler moved closer to his mother. Alex just watched. "I brought something," Marcus continued. He pulled out an envelope. The settlement was finalized yesterday. $540 million, plus 18% equity in Blackwell Technologies, restructured as voting shares in your family's name. He handed the envelope to Laura. "It doesn't fix what I did. Money can't bring James back, but it's what he earned, what he was owed, with 15 years of compound interest." Laura took the envelope but didn't open it. "You were at his funeral," she said. "Did you feel guilty then?" "Yes," Marcus admitted, "but not enough to do the right thing. I told myself James wouldn't have wanted me to feel bad, that he'd have wanted the company to succeed, that he'd have understood." He laughed, a bitter sound. "The lies we tell ourselves." "Why now?" Alex asked. "Why finally admit everything?" Marcus looked at him. "Because you looked exactly like him, standing in that conference room, solving that problem, using his algorithm. I saw James, saw what I'd stolen, not just code or money. I stole his chance to teach you and Tyler, to watch you both become the programmers he dreamed of being." He pulled out another document. "The foundation launches next month. The James Morrison Foundation for Young Programmers. Full scholarships for low-income students, mentorship programs, legal support for inventors whose work gets stolen. I've endowed it with $2 billion. Tyler's eyes went wide. "Billion with a B. Despite everything," Marcus smiled slightly. "Billion with a B. Your father's algorithm generated about $4 billion in total value. Half goes to your family as restitution. Half funds the foundation. So every kid who gets a scholarship, every inventor who gets legal help, they're benefiting from James's genius." He looked at Laura. "I can't undo what I did. Can't give you back the years you struggled. Can't give your sons their father. But I can make sure no other family goes through what yours did. That's my penance. That's how I'll spend the rest of my life." Laura was quiet for a long moment. Then, "James would have forgiven you. He forgave everyone. It made me crazy sometimes, how quick he was to see the best in people." She looked at Marcus with eyes that had cried too many tears. "But I'm not James. I don't forgive you. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. But I'll accept your foundation. Because you're right. Other kids deserve better than what my boys got." She held up the Crystal Award. "And you'll never say you built anything again. Every interview, every article, every mention of Blackwell Technologies, you'll credit James. You'll tell the truth. That's the price of whatever redemption you're looking for." "I will," Marcus said. "I promise." He extended his hand to Alex. "I meant what I said in the email. Your father would be proud of you. Not because you exposed me, because you solved that problem the way he would have. Because you fight for what's right even when it's hard. That's the Morrison legacy." Alex looked at the hand. His father had shaken that hand, had trusted the man attached to it, had died never knowing he'd been betrayed. But Alex wasn't his father. He'd learned from James's brilliance and from his mistakes. He shook Marcus's hand. "The foundation better actually help people, not just be a PR move. We'll be watching." "It will," Marcus promised. "I have a lot to atone for. I'm starting with this." That evening, back in their hotel room, Laura finally opened the settlement envelope. The check was more money than any of them could truly conceptualize. $540,000. Tyler stared at it. "Mom, are we rich now?" Laura laughed and cried at the same time. "Yes, baby, we're rich now. Can we get a house with separate bedrooms? We can get a house with a bedroom for each of you and 6 extra bedrooms. Can Alex have a real computer, not the library one? Alex can have 10 real computers." Tyler thought about this. "Can we get Dad's code put in a museum so people remember?" Laura pulled both her sons close. "Yes, we can do all of that." Alex held his father's notebook, thinking about the algorithm that had changed everything. Not because it made them rich, but because it proved James Morrison had mattered. "Dad was right," Alex said quietly. "The code is honest. It doesn't lie. It doesn't forget. And now everyone knows. The Morrison algorithm wasn't just elegant code. It was proof that brilliance can come from anywhere, from a community college teacher who believed in pure meritocracy, who thought the best idea should win. He looked at his mother and brother. We're going to make sure it does. The foundation, the scholarships, everything. We're going to find the next James Morrison before someone steals from them. Tyler nodded seriously. Operation: Protect the Geniuses. Despite everything, they all laughed. Real laughter. The kind that comes from finally being able to breathe after years of drowning. That night, Alex couldn't sleep. He opened his laptop, the new one the Hall of Fame had given him, and started coding. Not for money, not for fame, because his father had taught him that solving problems was its own reward, that making the world incrementally better was worth more than any fortune. He wrote an algorithm, something new, something that built on his father's work but pushed it further. And when he finished, he published it on GitHub under a Creative Commons license, free for anyone to use, modify, improve. The description read, "In memory of James Morrison, who believed code should be free and brilliant minds should be credited. Use this however you want. Just remember where it came from." By morning, it had been forked 1,000 times. By the end of the week, major tech companies were implementing it, and every single one credited, based on work by Alex Morrison, son of James Morrison, pioneer of distributed computing. The Morrison name was no longer just history, it was the future. 1 year later, Alex Morrison stood in front of 200 students at Mission High School's Computer Science Assembly. He was 17 now, taller, more confident. But he still wore the same kind of thrift store clothes he'd grown up in. Not because he had to anymore, but because it reminded him where he came from. "A lot of you know my story," Alex began. "The viral tweet, the lawsuit, the settlement. But that's not the story I want to tell you today." He clicked to the first slide. A photo of his father, young and smiling, standing at a whiteboard covered in code. "This is James Morrison, my dad. He died when I was 13, believing he'd failed, that his life's work amounted to nothing. And for 3 years, I believed that too. I watched my mom work 2 jobs. I watched my little brother ask why we couldn't afford things other kids had, and I thought, this is just how life is for people like us." Alex clicked to the next slide. The Morrison algorithm displayed in elegant lines of code. But my father didn't fail. He revolutionized computing, created an algorithm that powers billions of devices, made innovations that changed the world. The failure wasn't his. It was a system that allowed his brilliance to be stolen because he was sick and desperate and trusting the wrong person. He looked out at the students. Some were kids he'd gone to class with. Others were freshmen who only knew him from headlines. All of them were listening. "Here's what I learned. Talent isn't enough. Being smart isn't enough. Working hard isn't enough. Because there are people who will take what you create and put their name on it, who will exploit your desperation, who will bet that you're too poor, too tired, too scared to fight back." Alex clicked to another slide. The GitHub repository with millions of views. The 60 Minutes interview. The Hall of Fame ceremony. So you have to fight. You have to document everything. You have to know your worth and demand recognition. And most importantly, he clicked to the final slide, showing the James Morrison Foundation logo. You have to help the next person, because my dad's story isn't unique. It happens every day. Brilliant people getting erased, innovators getting exploited, dreamers being told their work doesn't matter. He paused. The James Morrison Foundation has given out 300 scholarships in the past year. Full rides to college for kids who code like my dad did, with passion, not privilege. We've helped 17 inventors file patents and protected their intellectual property. We've created mentorship programs connecting high school students with tech professionals who actually want to teach, not take. A hand shot up. Maria Gonzalez, a junior who'd been in Alex's computer science class. "How do we apply?" Alex smiled. "You already did. Just by being here. Just by caring about code. The foundation doesn't care about grades or test scores. We care about one thing. Do you love solving problems? If yes, we'll help you get trained, get connected, get protected. Because talent exists everywhere. Opportunity doesn't." After the assembly, Tyler found Alex in the hallway. He was 13 now, in 8th grade, already showing the same aptitude for programming that ran in the Morrison family. "That was good," Tyler said. The speech. Dad would have liked it. You think? Yeah, especially the part about helping the next person. That's what he always said, right? Make the world incrementally better. Alex pulled his brother into a side hug. When did you get so smart? I'm a Morrison. It's genetic. They walked out of the school together, past the new computer lab that the foundation had funded. 30 brand new machines, free coding classes after school, staffed by volunteers who'd been personally trained by Dr. Emily Chen. Emily had left Blackwell Technologies 6 months ago to run the foundation full-time. She told Alex, I spent 15 years being complicit in theft. I'm spending the rest of my life making sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. The Morrison family lived in a house now, not a mansion. Laura had refused anything ostentatious, but a real house in the Sunset District with a yard and separate bedrooms and a garage Alex had converted into a workspace. Inside that workspace, surrounded by computers and whiteboards and his father's original notebooks preserved in glass cases, Alex spent his evenings coding. Not for money. The settlement had made them financially secure for generations, not for fame. He'd had enough of that. But because his father had taught him that solving problems was its own reward, he was working on something new. An algorithm that would make encryption accessible to people without technical backgrounds. Something that could protect vulnerable communities from surveillance, help activists organize safely, give power back to individuals instead of corporations. He called it Morrison Public Key Infrastructure, MPKI. And like everything he created now, he would release it for free, open source, available to anyone who needed it. Laura knocked on the garage door frame. Dinner in 20 minutes. Tyler's making his famous burned grilled cheese. I heard that, Tyler yelled from inside the house. Alex saved his work and followed his mother inside. The kitchen was warm, lived in, the kind of space that felt like home in a way their old apartment never had. Photos covered the walls. James at his wedding, James holding baby Alex, James teaching Tyler to ride a bike in the weeks before he got too sick, and new photos too. Alex accepting his father's Hall of Fame award, Tyler at his first robotics competition, holding a trophy, Laura at the foundation's opening ceremony, cutting a ribbon while fighting tears. They ate dinner together, the three of them, talking about Tyler's upcoming science fair project and Laura's new job managing the foundation's scholarship program, and Alex's plans to start college in the fall. MIT had offered him a full ride. So had Stanford, Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon. Every top computer science program in the country wanted James Morrison's son. Alex had chosen MIT, where his father had dreamed of going, where Emily Chen had studied, where the best minds in computing gathered to push boundaries and solve impossible problems. You nervous? Laura asked, passing the salad. A little, Alex admitted. It's a long way from Mission High. You belong there, Tyler said firmly. You solved a problem 50 engineers couldn't. You exposed a billionaire. You're literally famous for being a genius. I'm famous for having a genius father. You're both geniuses, Laura corrected. And you're both proof that brilliance doesn't need permission or privilege. It just needs opportunity. After dinner, Alex received an email that made him smile. From Email Protected. Subject, Thank you. Alex, you don't know me. My name is Carmen Rodriguez. I'm 17, from Houston. My parents are undocumented. I've been coding since I was 10, teaching myself from library computers because we couldn't afford our own. Last month, I received a full scholarship from the James Morrison Foundation. Full tuition at UT Austin, a laptop, a mentor, a chance. I cried when I got the acceptance letter. Not because of the money, though that changes everything, but because someone believed in me. Someone said, your talent matters. Your dreams are valid. You deserve this. I know your father died not knowing how many lives he'd change. So I'm telling you, he changed mine, and I'm going to change someone else's. That's the legacy, not the algorithm or the money. The belief that we all deserve a chance to solve problems that matter. Thank you for fighting for your dad. Thank you for fighting for all of us. Carmen. Alex read it twice, then forwarded it to his mother and Tyler with a simple message. This is why. That evening, he couldn't sleep. He walked to the garage, turned on the lights, and looked at his father's notebooks behind glass. 16 years of work, thousands of pages, equations and code and dreams written in careful handwriting by a man who'd believed the world could be better if people just understood the patterns. Alex picked up his laptop and opened Twitter. He hadn't posted since the original viral thread, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like closure. He typed, "A year ago, I exposed how my father's algorithm was stolen. How a dying man was exploited by someone he trusted. How brilliance got buried under greed. Today, the James Morrison Foundation gave its 300th scholarship. 300 kids who love code but couldn't afford college now have their shot. My dad used to say, 'Make the world incrementally better.' That's what we're doing. One scholarship at a time. One protected patent at a time. One kid who believes they matter at a time. To everyone who supported us, who shared our story, who demanded justice, thank you. You proved that truth still matters, that collective outrage can change systems, that sometimes the small voices win. And to every young programmer reading this, your talent is real. Your ideas have value. Don't let anyone steal your work or silence your voice. Document everything. Know your worth. And when you succeed, help the next person." The Morrison algorithm changed computing, but the real algorithm is simpler. Talent, plus opportunity, change. My dad figured that out. Now it's our turn to prove him right. Alex Morrison, posted. Within an hour, it had 100,000 retweets. By morning, Carmen Rodriguez had responded, "Count me in. Morrison scholars, drop your handles below. Let's build something together." Hundreds of responses followed. Students from across the country connecting, collaborating, forming a network of young programmers who'd been given the same chance Alex's father never got. A community built on James Morrison's belief that code was honest and talent deserved recognition. Alex watched it grow, this digital memorial to a man who died thinking he'd failed, and felt something settle in his chest. Not grief. That would always be there. But peace. Understanding that his father's legacy wasn't just an algorithm. It was this. Kids helping kids. Brilliance being protected. Dreams being funded. A system slowly, incrementally getting better. Tyler appeared in the garage doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Can't sleep either. Just thinking about Dad." Tyler walked over, looked at the notebooks behind glass. "Do you think he knows? Everything we did?" Alex thought about the question. About algorithms and afterlife and whether consciousness persisted in any measurable way. His father would have approached it scientifically, breaking down the probabilities, the physics, the evidence. But Alex chose to believe differently. "Yeah, Ty. I think he knows." "Good." Tyler was quiet for a moment. "Because I want him to know I'm going to MIT, too. In 5 years. And I'm going to create something as cool as the Morrison algorithm. And no one's going to steal it, because you taught me to document everything and never trust people who want equity instead of friendship." Alex laughed. "That's pretty wise for 13. I'm a Morrison. It's genetic." Tyler grinned. "Plus, I have the world's most famous older brother teaching me. Kind of hard to fail with that advantage." They sat together in the garage, surrounded by their father's work, talking about the future, about the code they'd write, and the problems they'd solve, and the world they'd make incrementally better. Because James Morrison had been right about one thing. The code was honest. It didn't lie. It didn't forget. It didn't care about money or power or privilege. It just worked. Or it didn't. Pure logic. Pure truth. And in a world that often felt arbitrary and cruel, that mattered. The next morning, Alex woke to news that Blackwell Technologies had been fully restructured. Marcus had stepped down from all positions, donated his remaining shares to the foundation, and taken a teaching job at a community college in Oakland, teaching computer science, for free, to students who couldn't afford university. Trying to become the person James Morrison had been. It wouldn't undo the theft, wouldn't bring back the years Laura had struggled or give Tyler memories of a father he barely knew, wouldn't erase the pain, but it was something, a start. Proof that even people who'd made terrible choices could choose differently. Alex sent Marcus a single text. "Keep teaching. It's what Dad would have wanted." The response came hours later. "I will. For the rest of my life. Thank you for the second chance." As Alex packed his bag for MIT, scheduled to start in a few weeks, Laura knocked on his bedroom door. "I found something," she said, holding an old USB drive. "In your father's things. I didn't know what was on it, but I thought you should have it before you leave." Alex plugged it into his laptop. One file. A video titled, "For My Son's .mp4. He hit play. James Morrison appeared on screen. Sick, clearly. This was from the final months. But smiling. Always smiling. Alex Tyler, if you're watching this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry. Sorry I couldn't stay longer. Sorry I couldn't teach you everything I wanted to. Sorry the world is harder than it should be. But I need you to know something. Failure is just incomplete success. Every algorithm that doesn't work teaches you something. Every closed door shows you where the real entrance is. Every person who betrays you reveals who your true allies are. I don't know what will happen to my work, to Morrison Blackwell, to the algorithm I spent years perfecting. Maybe it'll matter, maybe it won't. But that's not what matters most. What matters is that you keep creating, keep solving problems, keep believing that broken things can be fixed if you understand the pattern. And take care of each other. Take care of your mother. Be smart, be kind, be relentlessly curious. The world needs people like you, people who see chaos and find order, who face injustice and demand better, who inherit broken systems and refuse to accept them. I love you both, more than algorithms or code or any innovation I ever created. You are my real legacy, my proof that talent and kindness can coexist, that brilliance doesn't require cruelty. Make the world incrementally better, one line of code at a time. Dad. The video ended. Alex sat frozen, tears streaming down his face. Tyler had appeared at some point, was crying too. Laura stood in the doorway, her own face wet. He knew, Alex whispered. He knew what we'd become. He always knew, Laura said. That's why he never stopped believing in you. That night, Alex Morrison, 17 years old, son of a genius, brother to Tyler, son of Laura, made a decision. He would go to MIT. He would study computer science. He would create algorithms that change the world. But more than that, he would teach, would mentor, would make sure every kid who loved code got the chance his father had been denied. Because the Morrison algorithm wasn't just elegant code. It was a promise. That talent mattered. That truth won. That small voices could shake empires. And that broken things, systems, companies, hearts, could be fixed if someone cared enough to understand the pattern. James Morrison had changed computing forever. Now his sons would change everything else, one line of code at a time.